We feel it every single second of our lives. Gravity, right? It's what keeps your feet on the floor and holds entire galaxies together. But what if I told you that everything we think we know about it is wrong? What if gravity isn't a fundamental force of nature at all, but some kind of grand illusion?
So let's start with one of the biggest, most embarrassing problems in all of science. When we use our best theories, I'm talking Newton, Einstein, the whole shebang, to look at the universe, we can only account for about 5% of everything that's out there. Just 5%. The other 95%, well, it's a complete mystery. We've given it these spooky names, dark matter and dark energy. But honestly, that's just a fancy way of saying we have no clue. We are completely in the dark about almost the entire universe.
For decades, the hunt has been on for some new, exotic particle that could explain this missing 95%. But a really radical new idea is starting to take hold. It asks a totally different question. What if dark matter and dark energy aren't even real? What if they're just ghosts in our equations, phantoms that we created because we've been looking at gravity all wrong from the very beginning? Okay, so this is where this wild new theory comes into play. It's called Constraint-Resonance Emergence Theory. Yeah, it's a mouthful, so we'll just call it CREAT. And it all starts with a proposal that sounds simple, but it will absolutely change how you see everything. Gravity is not a basic ingredient of the universe. It's something else entirely. The key idea here is something called emergence. And a great way to think about this is consciousness, right? You don't have a single consciousness atom in your brain. Instead, that feeling of being you, it emerges from the incredibly complex interactions of billions of neurons firing together. Krauts says gravity works the exact same way. It's not some fundamental force. It's a large-scale property that emerges from a much deeper, hidden quantum reality that we can't directly see.
And this, right here, is the crucial mind flip. We've always been taught that gravity is the cause. It's the force that pulls the apple down from the tree. Krauts says, nope, you've got it completely backward. The pull that we feel as gravity isn't the cause of anything. It is the effect of a hidden quantum process happening at the very fabric of reality.
So you're probably asking, okay, how on earth does that work? Well, CREAT pictures the universe as this giant cosmic feedback loop. It's like a constant two-way conversation happening between the unbelievably small and the unimaginably large. And it's this conversation that literally builds and sustains reality itself. So the theory breaks reality down into 3 layers. Let's walk through it. At the very bottom, you have what it calls micropixels. You can think of these as the absolute smallest bits of reality, like the pixels on a cosmic TV screen. Then step 2, these pixels are all connected by a web of quantum entanglement, these bizarre invisible threads that link everything together. And finally, step 3, the overall pattern of that web, its shape and structure, is what we actually experience as space-time.
And this is how you get that two-way feedback loop, that cosmic conversation. You have an upward flow where all those countless quantum threads weave themselves together to build the very geometry of space. But, and this is so important, it's not a one-way street. There's also a downward flow, where the big overall shape of space-time actually tells all those tiny threads how they should connect and behave. It's a constant, self-creating, self-sustaining cycle.
You know, the physicist Mark van Ramsdonk came up with just the perfect, simple way to think about this. He said, entanglement equals glue. That's it. The fabric of space-time is literally glued together by these weird quantum connections. The more entanglement you have, the stronger and more solid the geometry of space becomes. So, where does a genius like Einstein fit into all of this? Well, CREAT has an answer for that too. It suggests that his famous beautiful equations of general relativity aren't describing a fundamental force. What they're actually describing is the perfect balance point. That beautiful, stable resonance, where the upward flow from all that quantum entanglement and the downward flow from the large-scale geometry are in perfect, harmonious balance. And that brings us right back to our huge cosmic mystery. If gravity is really this emergent feedback loop, could it be the key? Could it finally explain that missing 95% of the universe? The people behind this theory are pretty optimistic. They think it absolutely can. Let's just put the 2 stories side by side for a second. The standard story, our current model, has to invent these mysterious substances, dark matter and dark energy, just to make the numbers work. It's like a cosmic fudge factor. But the CREAT story says, hold on, you don't need any of that.
The effects we're seeing aren't from some mystery stuff. They're just built-in properties of this entanglement web itself, which means the 95% might not be missing stuff at all. It could just be a deeper feature of gravity that we've never seen before.
So let's get a little more specific. How does this actually work? Well, take the problem of galaxies spinning way too fast. Crit says that's because the entanglement web isn't perfectly stiff. Over huge galactic distances, it has a kind of elasticity to it, which provides an extra gravitational tug, exactly the effect we blame on dark matter. And what about the universe expanding faster and faster? Crit says that's not some mysterious dark energy pushing things apart. It's just a natural, built-in feature of the entire cosmic feedback loop settling into its most stable global resonance.
Okay, now I know this all sounds incredibly cool, maybe a little bit like science fiction. But is it actual science? Well, any good theory has to be testable. You have to be able to check it against reality. And the most exciting thing about Corret is that it makes some very specific, concrete predictions that we can actually go out and test in the lab.
For instance, Crit predicts that if gravity emerges from entanglement, then gravity should be able to transmit entanglement. And believe it or not, physicists are designing tabletop experiments right now to see if they can use gravity alone to entangle two tiny masses. The theory also suggests we could create tiny analog universes in a lab and literally dial up the quantum connections between atoms to see if we can find the exact moment that gravity just turns on. And of course, we can take its predictions about gravity's elasticity and compare them directly to the real-world data we have from thousands of galaxies to see if they match. And just as important, a good theory has to tell you how it could be proven wrong. It has to be falsifiable. For CRET, the rules are pretty clear. If scientists ever observe gravity happening without a corresponding change in quantum entanglement, the theory's dead. If those experiments show that masses can bend space but gravity can't entangle them, the theory's in big trouble. See, that's what makes this a real solid scientific idea, and not just a cool story.
So when you boil it all down, what is gravity according to this new theory? Well, that curve in space-time that Einstein talked about, it isn't a force or even a thing in itself. It's simply the stable, self-maintaining shape that naturally emerges when the universe's deep quantum conversation with itself settles into a perfect harmonious resonance. And that leaves us with one last, truly mind-bending thought to chew on. We've always thought of the universe as a collection of things, planets, stars, particles, all sitting in a box. But what if this theory, or something like it, is right? What if reality is less like a box of objects and more like a single, continuous cosmic conversation? A conversation between the impossibly small and the unimaginably large, constantly talking to itself to create everything we see. What if the universe isn't really made of things at all?